Building a layout in Android has never been so easy thanks to the constraint layout. The constraint layout is one of the most useful and easy to use layout currently available in Android. It allows you to build large and complex UIs without nesting, that is, using a flat hierarchy. I usually see the constraint layout as a descendant of the relative layout since they are very similar to one another, but the constraint layout is much more flexible and blends directly with the layout editor in Android Studio. In this video, we're going to see how to use the constraint layout, and in the next video, we're going to see how to use the keyframes animation to animate items within the constraint layout. And at the end of it, we're going to build a simple and beautiful UI using just the constraint layout. So if you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and click on the notification button to be kept updated. That being said, let's get started. To start using the constraint layout, it should be added to the dependency section of your build.coded file. As you can see it here, the constraint layout is added to the dependencies and the current version is 2.0.4. So actually you don't have to worry about it because in the recent version of Android Studio automatically add the constraint layout as a dependency when you're creating the project. So now we are ready to use the layout, and let's move to our XML file, and I will start that by changing the layout editor mode to the design mode and add an image view. Let's say we're adding an image view. I will select this and we'll change the dimension of our view, the width to 135 dp and the height to 92 dp, and that should be okay, right? Yes. Let's say this is the profile image, so I will give it an idea of profile image, and that should be okay. So this is our first item in our layout, and what do you notice? You notice that this item can be constrained horizontally by either using the start here or the end, or constrained vertically by using the top or the bottom. So I will add another item. Here will be a text view, and I would like this to be the username, okay, and this will be username, right? So what we can do is that we can constrain our username to our profile image. I can constrain the top of my username to the top of my profile image by doing this, and that should be okay. And also I can constrain the start of my username to the end of my profile image by doing this, and also that should be okay, right? Now if I want to add a space, that is a margin between the profile image and the username, I can add it by selecting the username and add a start margin of 24, right? Yes, that's okay. And I can add another text view for something like the age. Yes, let's say is the user age. This text view will hold the user age. And I can also constrain the age to the bottom of the username by doing this way, right? Let's say we add a margin of 16 dp. No, 24 is better. 24. And we can also constrain the start of our age to the end of our profile image by doing this. This is another way of creating constraint by selecting. I will constrain the start to the end of our profile image, right? And I create a margin of 24 to be consistent in my design. So let's say we add another text view. Same thing. Constraint. No, we define an ID of the text view. Let's say this is the gender. Let's just say this is the gender of the user. And still we can constrain the gender text view, constrain the top to the bottom of the image by doing this, and constrain the start to the end of the profile image by doing this. So let's say we add a margin of 24 and add a top margin of 24 still. And that should be okay, right? So you've seen we've created a simple design of a profile image with the username, age, and gender, right? And at any time we can cancel a constraint by selecting the item and going to the attribute section of our layout editor. We can cancel by clicking here. So if I cancel this, you see I've just canceled the constraint that was creating a relationship between the gender and the profile image. There's no more constraint between these two items. So I can add it back by doing this, and that should be okay. And also we can constrain an item to the parent layout by, for example, if I want to constrain the start of our profile image to the start of our layout, I can select this and constrain it this way, you see, and then I will create a margin start of 16 dp should be okay. Right, now we can also center an item in the layout. Let's say I'll create a text view, and this text view I want it to be center in my layout. I can create a constraint this way. I will constrain the top of the text view to the top of my parent layout, and constrain the bottom of my text view to the bottom of my parent layout this way. And the text view will be vertically centered in my layout, as you can see here. So what I can also do is that I can, if I want it to be also horizontally centered, I can create a constraint the end of the text view to the end of the layout, and constrain the start of the text view to the start of the layout. So now you can see that this text view is both vertically and horizontally centered in the layout. That's how we do to create an item centered in the layout. So I don't want to use it, so at any time I can cancel the constraint by selecting the item and canceling it here, as you can see, canceling and canceling again. This is the text view here, and I can delete this by simply clicking the delete button, and this should be okay. Yes, and this should be okay. I will add another button to show you another aspect of the constraint layout, to show you how powerful the constraint layout can be. Let's say we have three buttons, right? We have three buttons this way, and this first button is like. It's like, if you like the video, click on the like button. We have subscribe if you like the video, and share if you have your friends interested in such content. So let's say we have three buttons, like, subscribe, and share, and we want these three buttons to always be horizontally aligned. We can create a constraint by selecting the three buttons, do a right click, and go to chain. We create it as a horizontal chain, right? And now align the top edge of the button. So that is it. You see that these buttons are now horizontally aligned, and it's just like if we're using a linear layout with a horizontal orientation, right? So this is how we have three buttons, and we can change the style of our chain by just selecting this, go to chain and horizontal chain style. We can change the style by choosing, by default the style is a spread. We can change the style by choosing spread inside, where you see we just use, instead the inner space, the outer space is being removed and used by the button. We just use the inner space, and the button are equally spaced one to each other. And I can also change the style again by using the pack style. You see, Now the buttons are now packed one to another. But the default style, as I said earlier, the default style is the spread, where the buttons are equally spaced within one another and from the parent. That is the default style of the change. So what if we have another item in our layout, like say this text view will hold something like the description. This text view will hold something like the description about the user, for example. And this other text view will hold something like any other information about the user. Let's say anything else. Anything else. Now this text view will hold any other information about the user. Now what if I don't want to create a constraint with the parent layout, or I don't want to create a constraint with another item in the layout? Like, what I can do is that I can right click and create what we call a guideline. I can create a vertical guideline. A guideline is simply an invisible line, not visible to the user, but used to design items within your layout. So this is our guideline. A guideline is 20 dp away from the parent layout. If you want to increase the spacing of the guideline, you can come here and create a spacing. It can be, for example, 24 dp away from the parent layout, as you wish, depending on what you want to achieve. So now I can constrain this description. I'll put it here. Now I can constrain this text view to the guideline. You see, instead of constraining this text view to the parent layout or to another item within my layout, I can constrain this text view to the guideline. You see, and I can also constrain this to the guideline too by selecting this, using a start and constraining to the guideline. As simple as that, right? Now let's go to the split mode, and you notice something. What do you notice? You notice that some items, Android Studio indicates some items as red, right? This is red, this is red too, this is red too. What does it mean? It means that, let me right click and you see this item is missing a constraint. So Android Studio will always indicate that an item is missing a constraint if this item is not both vertically and horizontally constrained. So if this item is just horizontally constrained, Android Studio will tell you that no, this item needs also to be vertically constrained. As for example, our image view is just horizontally constrained, but there's no vertical constraint. So to be sure of the position of the item within our layout, it should be both vertically and horizontally constrained. So I will add another constraint to my image view by constraining to the top of the parent layout, and I will add a margin of 32 dp. So if I go back to the split mode, you'll find out that this is no more red. So this issue has been solved. You understand? So for each item to be properly constrained, it should be constrained both vertically and horizontally to be sure of the position of the item within the screen. Here is it. Now, what if this username becomes very long? Let's say the username becomes very long. Very long. What do you notice? You notice that part of the text view is hidden. This is not what we want to achieve, right? So to solve this, let me remove this and put username. To solve this, we need to constrain the end of our username to the end of our layout to be sure that the username will not be hidden beneath the layout, right? So we create a constraint this way, right? Now if I put back the text, what happens? You see that the username can also go with the username. You can see that the username will be shown and occupy a space which we don't want. It's not good. It's not the design we want to achieve. The username will be shown on top of the image view, alright, and still hidden. This is not the design we wish to achieve. And what we will do is that we will change the constraint width using the constraint widget and changing the width or the type of the constraint from wrap content to match constraint. What do you notice? You notice down that we enforce the constraint. We enforce that this item to match the constraint. That is, keep the spacing we required, the spacing of 24 between the username and the profile image, and also be constrained to the end of the parent layout, as you can see. Very important. So we have three types of constraint, as you can see, where we can either change the size of the item from match constraint to wrap content, and from wrap content to fixed size. So in case of wrap content, the item take enough space required. But in case of fixed size, the item will have a fixed size and nothing more. But in case of match constraint, the item will be forced to match the constraint given, as in the case for our username. So here we can also add a constraint of 16 dp. Right, that is it, and now the issue is solved. Right, so what we've just seen is just a tip or a preview of what we can do with the constraint layout. And in the description below, I will add a link for more information about the constraint layout, and you can check it out. So just let me know if you have any questions or suggestions regarding this, and I'll be happy to answer to your questions. With that being said, see you in the next video.